Dr. Awuzie. Dr.
Thank
Awuzie, you are welcome.
Thank you so much, Dr. Mando.
Yes, is it possible perhaps that we can see you?
Yeah.
In my language, we say, this one, meaning that for us to better understand you, we would like to see you in person, Dr. Awuzie.
Oh, great.
Thank you
Good
so
to see
much.
you.
You're welcome, sir. You're welcome.
Thank you.
Okay, Dr. Awuzie, I just want to find out from you because Gogo Ru has given us her own lens in understanding spirituality and religion. And actually from her, we are not supposed to separate the two. What is your view on that, Dr. Awuzie?
Well, I mean, Gogo had some very great points, which I took note of, But from my personal perspective, I have drawn a difference, and I've drawn some differences between religion and spirituality. And I'm going to just go straight, if you don't mind,
Yes, please.
Religion, okay, great. Religion speaks of men seeking God. There's always a God out there, that man is trying to seek. Now, spirituality is us humans, seeking the purpose of our own life, drawing from the sense of our being and consciousness, who we are, who we can be, who we were meant to be. That's spirituality. So yes, there is a difference between religion and spirituality. The second one is that religion talks about a set of doctrines and rules and beliefs. Spirituality is more on the individual level. So spirituality is the individual looking inside for his own truth, trying to find his own reality, trying to connect with self. So I belong to, or I used to belong to this Christian organization, organized Pentecostal movement, which had their belief systems, and most of those belief systems, they did not sit well with me. They did not agree with my reality, and I struggled with that level of control from an external, entity, and that's what religion is about. Religion has a strong control on those who subscribe to it. Now, that brings us to a place of really going to study what is it that spirituality offers that religion does not offer. What is it that makes spirituality different from religion? If we look deeper, we could find some elements of spirituality in religion. But if we go to spirituality, we don't find elements of religion in spirituality. So you can be religious, and understand spirituality, but if you are spiritual, you would, to some extent, avoid religion, And I've got another point here, which says religion is built around a group or community, while on the other hand, spirituality is centered on individuality and how the individual experiences the reality inside them. So religion has to do with people, a gathering, a community, a group of people coming together to say, this is what we agree on. This is, our set of doctrines. And if you go against this, you're a heretic. That's what religion does. And that's what religion is, and so these are, groups of communities who behave the same way, think in the same pattern, and follow the same kind of rules. Now, what spirituality does is it takes you away from that group. It takes you away from that community, and it brings you into a closet. It brings into a closet, and where you begin to experience your own truth, your own reality, your own spirituality from a deeper point of view. So yes, again, there is a difference between religion and spirituality. I have on that point, and is the fourth point. Religion teaches sacredness, separation, and withdrawal from others who don't believe in your religion. Now, spirituality teaches connectivity with nature, connectivity with people who don't think like you, who don't believe like you, who don't love like you, you know. And if I'm going to share an experience, a personal experience, you know, with all of us here, I think I would drive a point home. Personally, you know, growing up, I started preaching, you know, at the age of 9 years old, and I was taught to hate some kind of people, you know, especially the homosexuals. You know, we are taught they were unclean. They represented the height of immorality and ungodliness. You know, so I grew up being a homophobic, and I want to say I do not subscribe to nor do I hate any kind of sexuality. This is my personal experience, you know. But I grew up hating this, being taught to hate this kind of people, you know. And until I got to a point of what I call a personal awakening, where I began to ask myself, what kind of God would, you know, be happy that those who love him hate other people? That was my point of transitioning from religion to spirituality. When I began to find a way to connect to people who do not love like me, you know, I'm not attracted to fellow guys, but I don't have to hate a guy who is attracted to fellow guys. You know, I'm black. I don't have to hate someone who's not black. You know, I love a certain way of eating, or you know, a certain way of dressing, but I don't have to hate someone who dresses in a certain way. So this is the striking difference between what religion teaches and what spirituality makes you experience. So religion, on one hand, you know, creates a sort of, you know, exclusion, a sort of separation, you know, sacredness. And when you transition from religion to spirituality, you become more open, you know, you become more inclusive, you become more welcoming to both humanity and to nature. And my last point here is that religion focuses on morality, which is based on accepted moral codes, while spirituality focuses on personal truth and reality. So while the religious person may find tattoos as immoral, you know, the spiritual person might want to understand the deeper meanings behind the tattoos that his son or his daughter has just got. So I don't have to spiritual or religionize it. I'm going to bind devils and bind demons because my child has just come home with some crazy tattoos. You know, I would want to go back, sit back, think, and ask questions, question things. You know, question, why did she do this? What is she trying to express? You know, so that is to the last difference, which is my last point. Spirituality questions, it asks questions. Religion, on the other hand, stops people from asking questions. Spirituality is a continuous journey of questioning. So you're questioning things. You're trying to learn. You're trying to find meaning to something, a deeper meaning, and a deeper meaning. And religion, on one hand, says, just believe it, don't question, accept it. If you don't, we kick you out. You're not one of us. And you're an infidel, you are called an unbeliever, you are called all kinds of names, and you are damned to some eternal punishment somewhere. Spirituality asks patience. You want to learn. You know, in spirituality, you want to understand before you believe. You know, and with that last point, I think Dr. Mando, that should give us a view of the differences between religion and spirituality. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Awuzie. Thank you so much for the insight in that area, meaning that with spirituality is God and I, the universe and I, but with religion, it's the we. And seemingly most of our people do not understand this. I think most of our people are trapped in religion rather than being in spirituality or being spiritual. Is that so?
Yeah.
What is it from your training as a theologian? What is it that perhaps the curriculum missed there? Because our people are taking it from the pastors themselves, that this is how things are, this is how things should be. And because pastors and traditional healers are highly regarded, our people just follow them like that without even questioning. So my question is, what went wrong in the training? Number one, I have seen other people, especially the pastors, most of the pastors do not go to school. What is happening? Are we supposed to just say it's a calling, or do you go through the process of that one of Gogo that they have to go through a certain process? What's happening? What's your view? What's the way forward in that regard? So that ultimately we don't mislead our people.
Yeah. You know, I've said this several times and on different platforms. The greatest or the worst thing that befell our generation or the generations before us is when we allowed people with limited intelligence to become our religious leaders and interpreters of religious books. You know, who you allow interpret a holy book to you becomes a major influence on your intelligence. So the first thing we missed is the place of intelligence in religion or spirituality. And the second thing, talking about curriculum, you know, what training that religious or spiritual leaders needs to have. You know, I think we missed one very important training, which is on individualism. You know, we've been trained on leadership and followership, you know, discipleship, and all the groupie kind of trainings, but little was taught or learned on individualism, the unique character of individuals, of people. You know, no two persons are the same. No two persons are the same. I mean, in biochemistry and you know, we're taught genetics, you know, and you begin to understand that no two persons, a mother and a daughter, the father and the son, they are not alike. So they are different people with unique characters, unique genes, and definitely unique life experiences. So there needs to be a sort of training or curriculum that trains spiritual and religious leaders on how to understand individualism and individuality, you know, how unique humans are, and bring these individuals, not as groups, as individuals, you know, to a place of experiencing a unique spiritual reality that is unique to their reality, unique to who they are, you know. So this is what we see in religious groups. There is a guy up there who is preaching a generic theory, a generic sermon message, you know, over hundreds of people who have very unique experiences. So a guy comes and says, God hates divorce, right? And there's a woman there who is in an abusive relationship, an abusive marriage. And what she needs to learn is that God will not condemn you because you escaped abuse, you know. And the pastor wouldn't say that, or can't say that, because he's trained to see people as a group and not as individuals. So we need to develop a theology that is based on individualism, and personal human experience. I don't know if that answers your question.
It answers my question, Doc. Thank you Great. So much. And with this topic is quite interesting. I know we might end up having, you know, discussing the whole thing the whole day. In one of your posts, I think I stole it, you said on Facebook, you said spirituality actually frees an individual, okay, liberates an individual. And religion is that one that actually captivates. And we can see that most of our people are captivated. And we hope that sometime this will make sense to them and we'll find a way to free them. And I just want to know, before you go and before we go to the questions from the public, do you think that sometimes, out of the things that we are observing, especially in South Africa, actually the whole continent, what the pastors are doing, do you think that there are some elements of personality disorders amongst our pastors? I saw you touched on it one day in one of your posts on Facebook, and perhaps also Anele and Dr. Anele and Mr. Mauda can come in, because they are also spiritual leaders and psychologists there. And perhaps we can just have a dialogue with Dr. Awuzie on issues around the personality there of most of our spiritual leaders. So Axis 2 for mental health practitioners, we are talking about Axis 2. Do you think we have Axis 2 amongst those people? Thank you. Thank you, Doc. Can you attempt that one, perhaps?
Okay. Definitely, there is a lot of personality disorders, which is born or a product of religious indoctrination, and the most obvious is narcissism, where I suffered from that myself. I suffered from that, where we were trained to think that you are more anointed, closer to God, have the personal line of the God of all earth, so you begin to see yourself in a superhuman way, and you begin to treat people who do not have the same kind of anointing as lower beings. So that's what we see. And in South Africa, where you see people bowing and kneeling down, older people bowing down to young prophets, and all those kind of things, those are mental disorders which are associated with religion, and if I got the question right, I believe you're asking for the disorders.
I think it's the one you answered it so perfectly well. And when you mentioned narcissism, I said, yeah. Let's hear from the public colleagues. Do you have any question for Dr. Awuzie? There's one question here, Doc. They said, what is the question is from Professor Martina Zinking from University of Buea in Cameroon. She says, what is the difference between Christian spirituality and traditional spirituality? Can religion help an individual to become religious? I don't know whether you understand the question, but I don't, but perhaps you might.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you? Okay. Yeah.
Okay. The Christian spirituality, I rather would phrase it this way, spirituality that is based on the teachings, philosophy, and person of Yeshua, Christ Jesus, and I subscribe to that spirituality myself. I follow, I'm a follower of the person of Yeshua. I believe in his personality, and I believe that he was not religious. I believe that he was misunderstood and packaged by people with very criminal intentions to sell him as a religious personality. But back to your question, the difference between Christ-centered spirituality and traditional spirituality is that what Christ says, it is finished. I've done the work for you. You don't have to do the rituals. You don't have to, buy a new cow for, to appease whichever gods that feel offended at you. I've done the work for you. You just have to believe. You just have to accept, or come to the knowledge, the consciousness of what I accomplished for you. And I love that mentality. I love that philosophy, that sort of makes humans more confident in the finished work or something that is done than trying to seek more help from where there is no help. So the major difference is that while Jesus on one hand teaches, that it is finished, you've got to do nothing, just love, live, and experience this new life. My traditional religion, from where I come from, expects me to daily pour libation. So I have to go out, sit on the ground, on the floor, which is very dehumanizing, dehumanizing. I'll sit on the floor, cross my legs, and pour libation to the ancestors, to beg for their daily blessings. And if I don't do that, I won't be successful in business. I won't grow. I won't have success in life. But a Christ-based spirituality on one hand says and teaches that you don't have to do all that. You don't have to do, you can just live a free life and be successful and be great, living just a free life. Unfortunately, some Christian leaders have, they twisted this simple, what we call gospel, and in Christendom, what we call gospel, which is good news. They twisted this good news, and marketed it as what we call soul to prosper gospel, where they took away the major elements of Christ's teaching, which is that it is finished, and they, stole some ancient doctrines from the Jewish religion, which is Judaism, injected it into the Christocentric spirituality, and created a joint religion, which I call Christo-Judaism, which is what 90% of Christians are practicing today, which is actually not Christianity, but Christo-Judaism. So that's the difference between Christian or Christ-based spirituality and the African traditional religion. I believe that answers the question.
Thank you very much, Dr. Awuzie. Questions are flooding. And I think somehow we are going to stop here, but the other one for Davis Luceno, I think your question will be answered by psychologists and psychiatrists during the session when he's talking about the solution for that personality disorder. So Dr. Martina, from the one who asked the questions, she said, thank you very much. You're making the points very clear for anyone to understand. And there has been positive feedback. They're saying, Pastor Mao, they're saying very good and well-informed responses from Dr. Awuzie. Thank you so much. So those are the comments down there. And there is the other one, that's Grant Matthews. He says, thank you, James Bock Group, meaning you, Dr. Awuzie. That makes sense to me, So thank you very much for opening our eyes as mental health practitioners. Don't be surprised. We'll continuously make consultations and ask here and there where we are stuck, and we are looking forward to work closely with you, because as Gogoru, we need you guys in the multidisciplinary teams to discuss issues around our clients. Thank you so much, Dr. Awuzie. Is there anyone who has a question before we close session 1 and start with our first presenters? Okay, is there anyone with a question for Dr. Awuzie?
I have a question.
Yes, please. You can go ahead, Karugo. Which country are you coming from?
I'm from Kenya.
Okay, thank you so much, sir. May you please go ahead, yes.
There has been an increase in the secularism in the country and in the world, where you find a lot of people becoming atheists. And among scientific circles, I've also had the discussion of there being a religious instinct in people. Do you think we have a religious instinct, that a biological instinct that requires us to be religious and or spiritual? And is it wrong to be an atheist? Do you think atheism has any, side effects on atheists?
Okay. Thank you for that question. First of all, religion, spirituality, consciousness, and all that happens in the brain. They happen, in the brain. They form part of the human consciousness. And I do not believe that atheism would have a biological effect in any way, or biochemical effect in any way on the atheists than the religion of the Christian would have on the Christian, because these are belief patterns, they are belief systems. And yes, humans have a natural craving, but it's not biological. It's not biological. It's more mental. Is in the mind. Is in the mind. They have a natural craving for a higher consciousness. And that gives birth to the tendency to look up to something higher than us. So it's natural, but it's not biological. It's more in the mind of which comes from thoughts and exposure to reasonings, teachings, and the media. A child, when the child is born, has no religion. He's innocent. A child is born without any of those thought patterns. And to summarize my answer to your question, yes, there is a huge drift from religion, to atheism, which I think I would blame on the religious leaders, because they failed to answer some deep questions from these guys. They are humans like us. They think. I've got a lot of people who came to me to say, Charles, if and this is crazy, if God said to Cain when he killed Abel, to be, if he spoke to some people in some lands and wants them not to kill him, who are those people if they were only just Adam, Eve, Cain, and Abel, if they were just the only humans on earth? So who were those people that God was, protecting Cain from? Now this guy has gone everywhere to ask those questions. He's asked pastors, he's asked imams, he's asked everyone, and they just said, look, stop questioning God, don't question God. And he was drifting, to atheism until he met me. And he asked me, just, I need an answer to this question, because if I don't get an answer, I'm going to question everything else in any holy book. And then we studied history, we studied other books. This is the top one that day, and I'm going to just cut my answer short here. But the truth is this: when religion stops people from asking questions, then they would completely dump religion. And that's what gives birth to the growth in atheism. Thank you so much, Dr. Mandu. That's my answer.
Thank you so much, Dr. Awuzie. Colleagues, unfortunately, we have to go finish this first session with our spiritual leaders who gave us insight that will kind of influence and inform our presentation as we go forward. Thank you for your questions. And thank you. Unfortunately, we cannot take all the questions. Dr. Awuzie, thank you so much. Is there anything perhaps you want to say to them, and also about your business? Yeah.
Okay, I'll just keep the business out of this to respect the intellectuals on this platform. But my words to you is, keep pursuing higher knowledge. Don't stop pursuing knowledge. That's the way to go. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.